This video is on the method of factoring called busting the bee, and it can be used to just factor a quadratic trinomial or to solve a quadratic trinomial equation. You'll find the copy of this step-by-step outline posted on Google Classroom. So the first thing to do is to set up the quadratic equation and make sure that it's set equal to 0. So we're going to use 2x squared plus 37x plus 18, and we're going to set this equal to 0. So to solve this equation, it's not possible to move the 18 and keep the x's on the other side and then isolate the x. So we have to either graph to solve or use the quadratic formula. Today we're going to use this method of factoring called busting the bee. So to do this, we're going to first find the product of a and c. So a and c. A is the coefficient on the x squared term, and c is the constant. So you're going to find that product, so you multiply those two numbers together, and you get 2 times 18, which is equal to 36. And that's what I refer to as the magic number. So in the next step, what we want to do is find two numbers that multiply to this magic number. So over here are your step-by-step instructions. But add to the value of b. Well, what's b? b is right here. It's the coefficient on the linear term. So in this particular problem, our b is 37. And our magic number was 36. So we need two numbers that have the product of 36 and add to that b value of 37. And those two numbers are 36 and 1. 36 and 1. So this little diagram right here lets you kind of organize your work. I know some of you have learned other methods for organizing and figuring out the factors. If those work for you, then great. This is just another way that might help some of you that are struggling with factoring. So again, following our step-by-step instructions over here. So we're going to bust up the b. We're going to break up this b term and use 36 and 1 instead. So 2x squared. And then plus 36x plus another 1x would give me 37x plus 18, and the equation is still set equal to 0. So continuing to follow our step-by-step instructions over here, the next step is to group the first terms in one set of parentheses and the last two terms in another set of parentheses. So our work would look like this. Now be very careful. You always need to make sure that there's an addition sign between those two sets of parentheses. So continuing with our steps over here. So this sheet gives you an idea of the step-by-step instructions that you need to follow to do this method of factoring. We're going to take out the GCF, the greatest common factor, in each set. So the GCF here and a GCF here. So the GCF here, the greatest term that can be divided evenly into both of these terms, is a 2x. So if I divide 2x squared by 2x, I get just x. And if I divide 36x by 2x, I get 18. And then this one here, the greatest common factor is just a 1. And sometimes that's all that we can take out, but you always have to take out at least something, even if it's only a 1. Okay, and we notice that this expression here and this expression here both have the same binomial factor, so binomial, two terms. They both have an x plus 18 in common. So what we do is think about this as the binomial x plus 18 being distributed to both a 2x and to a 1. So basically all of this here gets distributed to that. And also all of this here gets distributed to that. And that would give you the prior step. And since we are actually solving an equation, we are looking for specific x values. So what we do in the next step, let me get back in the frame here. What we do in the next step is set each of those factors equal to 0. So x plus 18 equal to 0. And 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. And this is called the zero product property. The zero product property says that if you have two things multiplied together, that's this expression and this expression, and that product is 0, that means that one of these, or maybe both of these, have to be equal to 0. So we are solving the equation x plus 18 is equal to 0, and we do that by subtracting 18 from both sides. So we get x is equal to negative 18. And then the second equation that we have to solve is a 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides. And so you get 2x is equal to negative 1. And now we're trying to solve for x, so we have to get the x by itself. So you're going to have to divide both sides of this equation by 2. And you end up with a result of x equals negative 1/2. So the final answer, my solutions are x is equal to negative 18 and then negative 1/2. So to set up two numbers. All right, that's your first example of solving a quadratic equation using a factoring method called busting the bee. I'll do one more example for you. Let me pause the video for a minute and get that piece of paper and example. So your second example is the instructions are a little different. You're not solving a quadratic equation in this example. You are only factoring. So the process is still the same, referencing the steps that were on that other handout. The first thing that we need to do is multiply the a, so this is a, and the b together. Now be very, very careful, because really what this quadratic expression is think of the subtraction of a 7x as really being a plus negative. So this process of thinking of subtraction is really adding a negative number. It's helpful when we go to do the factoring so we don't lose our negative signs. So I'm encouraging you to change subtraction to the adding of a negative number. All right, so this is A. And now we can clearly see that C is a negative 20. So you're going to multiply those two together. And that's going to give you what I call the magic number. Okay? All right, so what we need to do is break down that magic number. So the way I organize my work. Some of you learned this with this big giant X thing. I don't do it that way. Find this a little bit easier to realize what I'm working with. I don't have to think about what goes where on the X. So the big X thing I'm talking about is some of you learned this method where you had this and you put your factors one side and your C, your magic number here. I don't remember how it works, so I don't do it. All right, so we have to find two numbers that multiply to negative 120 and add to negative 7. And sometimes that is the most challenging thing to do. You could try, it's really a guess and check sort of thing. So if I look at negative 120, over here is kind of my scrapyard. And I think about that, well, negative 120 could be divided by 2. The factors could be like negative 2 and 60, or 60, negative 60 and 2. But neither one of those, when you add them together, do you get negative 7. So that's not really a good guess. You could try negative 12 and 10, or negative 10 and a positive 12. Both of those choices would multiply to negative 120, but neither of those, when you add these together, adds to negative 2. So those guesses are no good. It took a little while to actually figure out what the numbers were. To save time on the video, I'm going to just tell you with a little guess and check. We came up with negative 15 and a positive 8. And if you multiply those together, you would find that you get negative 120. So that's my breakdown that I'm going to be using for b. This is my b right here. My b is -7. So again, this is the reason why I changed subtraction to adding the negative. So here we go. 6x squared minus, or plus, we'll do it this way so I can show you something to be careful of. Make sure that whenever you have subtraction, you think of that as a adding of a negative. So there's my breakdown of b. So this adds to -7x. So I have not changed the expression, I've just rewritten it in format. So I group the first two. Make sure there's addition sign between. Group the last two. And then I factor. So the GCF in this pair is 2x. And the GCF that I can factor out of these two terms is a -5. Remember, not to lose that addition sign. So this is a 3x and a +4. And the key here is making sure that when you get to this step, this and this have to match. All right, so that's the common binomial in both this expression and this expression. So I can factor out a 3x + 4. And what's left, I pair together. So the 2x goes with the -5. And I'm done, because the instructions for this problem were simply to factor. There's no solving. You're not looking for an x value. So paying attention to the instructions. It did not say solve, it said factor. So the two factors are 3x + 4 and 2x - 5. All right, so now that I've done two example problems, I would encourage you to rework the ACT problem set 2, number 2 and number 4. And also hope that this will help you with your factoring assignment for your weekend homework. Thursday night homework, Friday night homework, depending on which class you're in. Okay, there you go. Good luck.